Hi, boys and girls. Our story today is called God Struck the Organ Dumb. Now, you know what the word dumb means. It means you can't speak. Well, the organ, I'm getting ahead myself with my story. Francis had been playing that organ, and it was an old pump organ, and pump organs have pedals underneath of them that you have to pump kind of like this with your feet. And that makes air go up through the billows in the back of it. And when you play the keys, the music comes out. Well, Francis, he loved to play, and he was trying to learn a new hymn. He played all the notes with the right hand. Then he played all the notes with the left hand. And then he put both hands together and he tried to play, but it didn't sound good. He couldn't figure out what was wrong here. Maybe it was just him. Maybe this hymn was extra hard. So he decided he would go outside for a little bit. Maybe later on he'd be able to practice. So he went down the porch, went outside, and his sister was sitting under the Duran tree. They lived in Borneo. His parents were missionaries there. And she loved to read. Her name was Ellen, so she was there sitting under the tree reading. And when Francis came out, she said, "Isn't this your practice time?" And he said, "Yeah, it is. But I'm having a hard time today. I really can't make it sound good. And I can't seem to practice. So I decided I'd come out and try to find that little truck I was playing with yesterday. I'm sure it's in that tall grass here somewhere." So he went off to look for his truck, and Frances continued reading her book. Well, then both children stopped what they were doing. It was a time of war in Borneo, and their roads were dirt. Most of the people didn't have vehicles, and so most people that came walked. But they heard vehicles coming. They looked up almost in fright, and there, pulling up in their yard, was several vehicles full of soldiers. And an officer got out, and then all those other soldiers got out. And they came over to where the kids were. They didn't seem to be unfriendly, but they talked loudly. "Is your father home?" "Francis," he said, "he's in the house." And Father must have heard that loud voice, because he quickly came out and stood on the porch, and he said, "Can I help you? What do you want with me?" And the officer walked over to the porch, and he said, "You're the pastor here, right? The minister?" And Father said, "Yes." He said, "Do you have an organ or a piano in your chapel here?" And Father said, "No, we had one, but your soldiers took it months ago." The officer stood there thinking, and he said, "Do you have an organ in your house?" Father couldn't lie. "Yes, sir, we do." And Francis, he immediately started praying to God, "Don't let them take the organ." This organ had been an organ that they felt was an answer to their prayers. It had been some time ago when a family was going to move away from Borneo, and Father had gone to see. He'd heard that they were selling their organ. He knew he didn't have much money, but it certainly would be nice to have some music. And when he went there, the people were very kind, and they offered it to the pastor for very little money. And the whole family had thanked God for the organ that they felt he'd sent them. Well, back to our story. When they went inside, the officer went over to that organ. He looked at it, and he turned to Father, and he said, "Is it in good working order? Does it play well?" And Father said, I think so. Well, then the officer turned to one of his soldiers and he said, come over here and try it. So he sat down and he put his feet on those pedals and he started pumping them, pumping them. You know, pump organs are ran by the air. They don't require any electricity. Then he put his hands up on the keys and he started playing. But no sound came out. None. Oh, Francis, he was over there in the corner praying. Oh, God, please don't let them take our organ, please. But what could be wrong with the organ? It had played before. But he didn't say anything, and neither did Father. So the soldier had another young man sit down. Maybe it was just the person that was trying to play it. And he started pumping the pedals. He pumped them hard. You could hear the air going into the billows. And then he put his hands on the keys and he started playing. But no sound came out. He looked at the officer and he said, I'm sorry, sir, it seems to not work. And his face got really red. Now, the officer, he was getting disgusted with this thing. He said, that thing doesn't work. It's useless to us. It doesn't work. But he went over and he tried it. He put his hands on the keys. No sound. He pumped the pedals. No sound. He pulled the organ out and he looked at the bellows, but they seemed to be fine. Then he took the organ and he shook it. Maybe it just needs to be shook a little bit. But that organ would make not one sound. Not even a squeak did it make. Finally, they all left in disgust. They got in their vehicles and they zoomed down that dirt road. Francis was so glad. Oh, God, thank you for not letting them take it away. Well, then Father went back to finish working on his sermon. Mother went back in the kitchen and Ellen went back to her book. And Francis, he looked at that organ and he thought, I wonder. So he sat down and he started pumping and he tried playing, but it made no sound. Then he went outside and Ellen said, where are you going? He said, I'm going to get Dad's tools. Maybe I can take the organ apart and see what's wrong. Maybe some white ants got in it and ate holes in the billows. That happened there in Borneo. But when he came back, before he started tearing it apart, he sat down to play. He put his feet on those pump pedals. He put his hands on the keys and he started to play, and beautiful music came issuing out of it at him. Beautiful music. Mom, Dad, Ellen, it works. The organ works. And when Mom and Dad came running and Ellen came running, Francis said, it works. Listen, it works. I tried it before, but it didn't make any sound. And Father stood there, a look of awe on his face. And he said, I bet it didn't work before because the soldiers weren't far enough away. They would have heard it and thought we'd played a trick on them and come back for our organ. God, the angels, didn't let it play till it was safe for it to play. God struck the organ dumb because he wanted us to have it. They stood there in awe. They felt that they were in the presence of angels. Angels that had made that organ not play. I never know what angels might do, I don't know if one of them had gotten behind it and made it so the pedals, although they didn't make any air go up. Who knows what he did, what that angel might have done. But he did what was the will of God. That organ was to stay with that missionary family. They knelt and they thanked God for the blessing of the music that the organ could make, and the fact that he had sent his angels to strike the organ dumb. Thank you, boys and girls. God cares about the little things. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye now.